On this episode, we're going to talk more about these Anthem protests, especially given with what happened with the Vice President on this past weekend, and also with the news of, or not fake news, with Kaepernick and Jerry Jones and Jemele Hill and all that surrounding these protests. And also we're going to have a bit of a flashback to before this podcast and play the very first interview I ever had with Super Bowl champion Burgess Owens. So all that on this episode of Trend Chat. Stick around. Welcome everybody to another episode of Trend Chat. I'm your host, Brian Bledsoe. And as always, if you want to connect with us, whether on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, it's all the same name, Trend Chat 24/7. And I write for politichicks.com. If you want to read some of my articles on there, just go to politichicks.com/author/Brian Bledsoe. And don't forget about the book, Politichicks, A Clarion Call to Political Activism, which is available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. Over 300 pages from contributors like myself talking about healthcare, education, general political issues, activism. And the article that I contribute to the book is in the section called Activism, talking about my time as a delegate at the Republican National Convention. So, as always, definitely go out and get a copy. And also, a little bit new, I want to mention that I will be speaking at the Republican Women of Arlington fundraiser on October 20th. And with the Politichicks, they are the feature, and they brought me in to do, to speak a little bit, which is actually going to be my first speaking engagement. So, just want to bring that up in case if anyone wants to attend. Just go to my Facebook, go to Trend Chat Facebook page, and you should see the link to that fundraiser. So definitely I'm excited, given this is my first speaking engagement, and I'm definitely I guess to say a little bit nervous about it, but I'm more excited than nervous because I kind of already have an idea of what I want to talk about, and just I guess I also, when it comes to this podcast, kind of want to know what I've decided on speaking about. Is it going to be within the time frame that I have for it? So I don't, I have to gauge all that at the time. I guess maybe there'll be other speaking engagements so I can, learn how to either shorten or lengthen the speech according to whatever time I'm given. So. Like I mentioned in the beginning, these Anthem protests this story just keeps on growing. There's always new little stories that happen. And so this past weekend, the Indianapolis Colts played the San Francisco 49ers, and Vice President Mike Pence was in attendance. And, when it came time for the national anthem, obviously this is a point where everybody's eyes are glued to seeing who's going to be kneeling, who's going to be standing. And to come to no one's surprise, there were people, especially from the 49ers, who knelt for the anthem. That really wasn't surprising at all to see that happening. But what happened as well is that the vice president decided to walk out because of them kneeling, and that just caused a huge uproar, especially among the media. And how dare the vice president leave? And one of the players, maybe he's a former player, I don't know, and his name Eric Reed. He kind of equated this to systematic oppression because the vice president left because of the Anthem protest. And he posted a statement on Twitter and all over social media, just saying that he didn't want to dignify an event that's going to disrespect the flag and the military, and so on. And then you had people in the media coming out saying, well, this was a PR stunt because he walked out and all that. Look, in my opinion, the possibility of someone kneeling during the national anthem, especially with someone like the vice president in attendance, is very high. So to say that this wasn't already planned, yeah, I would guess this probably was planned in a sense that, okay, what if everyone stood? That probably would have been I guess you would have to go to plan B if everyone stood, because you automatically think that if all these players have been kneeling all this time, you're pretty sure they're going to do it then. So if they do, I'm going to leave to make a statement. And so he made a statement, and then the media want to make it look like it's some sort of PR stunt. Well, isn't what the players doing as far as kneeling for the anthem, that is a PR or political stunt as well? If you want to look at it like that, they're doing something to gain attention of whether you agree or disagree with their reason for kneeling, but they're trying to get attention and they're trying to make a statement. So in this case, the vice president decided to make a statement. So I don't see why it's wrong, but obviously it's not surprising that the media wanted to make it, one-sided as far as making it look bad for the vice president to leave, as opposed to at the same time totally defending the players and their stunt. So, but that wasn't the only story on Sunday, especially actually, because then there was a story by the Associated Press and I think CBS Sports coming out saying that Colin Kaepernick said that he will stand for the anthem if he's signed to a team. Now, when I first heard that, I just kind of bust out laughing in a way, because after all of this and starting all this controversy, now all of a sudden you decided you want to stand. I was like, really? And at this point, if I was an owner, and even though he said he's willing to stand, I'm like, nah, that's all right, bro. You've started this whole little, PR disaster for us, and now all of a sudden you're like, well, now I'll stand now. Funny because I posted on Facebook, because to me it feels like he kind of did this whole putting the story out that he'll stand because maybe he was, I don't know, maybe he's low on money, and he said, okay, maybe if I say I'm going to stand for the anthem, maybe these liberal buddies of mine or these donors that definitely want to, they definitely for my cause and want me to continue going on and stirring all this up. If I say I stand, maybe they'll give me a little more money. Shake them down in a way. So, that's just what I think. Now, it could have easily been, and I think this probably is what really happened, is that the reporter, whoever it was, just maybe took a little liberties with what Kaepernick said and went too far as saying what he would do. That's kind of what I think probably happened. But hey, if the other thing is how I described it, maybe that was in his thought process too. Maybe he was just thinking about you can get a little more money from George Soros or something. If he threatened through the media that he might stand for the anthem, because you don't want him to do that. He's the poster boy for all this. Can't have him going out there and doing away with this whole anthem protest, and so they'll see that happening. They're like, well, look, you don't need that money. You don't need that NFL money. You don't need that white man's money. We'll give you whatever you need. You just continue fighting, my brother. Yeah, whatever like that. So, and then I think all this happened on Sunday. Then later on, a story came out about Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and the owner of the Dolphins. I don't remember his name, but those owners came out and saying that from now on, the players are required to stand, for their teams. That they are mandating that all their players stand now, which, okay, that's totally their right as owners of their teams to make that decision. So whatever to that. But then Jemele Hill, sportcaster from ESPN, decided to go on a tweet fest in a way and basically make it kind of in a subtle way, even though she tried to say that this is not what she was trying to say, but she definitely was talking about, well, if that's what you want, if you want real change, if you want some change, then you need to boycott his advertisers, his being Jerry Jones. If you don't agree with what he is doing now with telling the players to stand for the anthem. And when I saw that tweet in particular, I replied and saying that, well, the same can apply to you and ESPN. If I don't like what Jemele Hill is spouting out all the time and calling President Trump a white supremacist or whatever liberal nonsense she's always talking about, and as far as ESPN in general, then you could stop patronizing their advertisers of ESPN. So, it can go both ways. The way she's wanted to bring it up, she kind of more make it seem like, well, it should happen to them. Yeah, well, it could happen to you too. And I don't know, given the fact that this is the second time she's kind of went on this political rant in the past couple of weeks, outside of, when she was saying about President Trump being a white supremacist, ESPN, for some reason, I really don't know why now, but they decided to suspend her for 2 weeks for, I guess, violating the social media policy now. So I don't know, maybe ESPN has gotten to the point that their ratings, or they're not getting the money that they advertising dollars that they were getting before, and maybe they've finally have realized maybe we should just stick to sports, even though a lot of those sportcasters love to dismiss that notion. Well, we can't just stick to sports because there's other things going on in the world. Well, you still don't have to talk about it. You are a sports network. So if you did just stick with sports, a lot of things, as far as any other issues, whether it's political or whatever, you don't have to talk about those issues. You choose to talk about those issues. You could very well just talk about, the plays in the game and whatever else is going on surrounding the game. But as far as all these other issues, you choose to get involved in those issues. Try to make it seem like you have to talk about this. You ain't got to do anything. So to try to make it seem like, well, we can't just stick to sports. No, you choose to not stick to sports because you can do it. So all of that happened, I think, on Sunday, actually. And it was a crazy day. For me, I just heard about it through Twitter and Facebook. Like I still don't like. I haven't been watching the games, and it's not like I'm on this like big NFL boycott. I'm not. That's not me. I just don't care no more. I have stopped caring, and I have talked about this. I don't know how many times on here, so I'm not going to go on into why. But yeah, I just don't care about watching NFL. I really don't care about watching NBA. Like, I'm kind of over all these sports leagues, especially the ones that want to make their don't want to stick to sports. Like, they want to make their political statements out there during the game, and I don't care about seeing none of that. So it's annoying, and it has annoyed me to the point to where I just don't care about watching. Like, I have no problem with whatever statement you want to make outside of the game. I mean, it's like these actors in Hollywood. All these actors, they out here, they make plenty of liberal statements. Trust me, they make plenty of them. But they don't do it in the role they're playing. When they're playing a role, they're playing that role or whatever it is. What is a superhero or whatever. Like an example I'm thinking of right now, Chris Evans, who plays Captain America on Avengers. So when he's in the movie, he's playing Captain America, which is totally fine. But he definitely is a big time liberal because he makes all those statements outside of his role as Captain America. And so that's what I'm saying as far as I have no problem with that. Because this is all this, as far as these sport leagues go, this is entertainment. Movies, sports, all this is entertainment. You're playing a game. That's basically, that's all you're doing. You're playing a game. And it's all part of entertainment. And so when you start going into political issues, which are automatically divisive, you're basically just, you feel like that you are more important as far as doing whatever job it is, whether it is throwing a football or, bouncing a ball or whatever. So anyway, like I said, from all that, I guess I kind of added into more as to why I don't care about all this anymore. And, but yeah, so I don't really care. Like, it's not like I break out into hives or get triggered if I see it on at a bar somewhere. If it's on, I'll watch it. But I just don't go out of my way to watch it anymore. It's like, I'm not going to turn on my device to, what game is on today? Or I got to see this or that game or whatever. I just don't care. If it's on, it's on. If it's, if it's not, I don't care no more. And also, for me, I'm actually am part of the Nielsen rating system for the device that I have. So in a sense, I do kind of not watch in that way, just because, given that whatever I watch does goes toward the ratings. So I was already not interested. So now, on top of the fact that if I do even watch it, it goes towards them getting higher ratings. Then I'm like, I now really don't go and watch. I don't even click on it, because now I'm like, I already don't care for watching it anyway. So why would I even give you any help in your ratings? So rant is over. Like I said, we're going to get to a flashback interview. This was done in July, actually, of last year. And this is my very first interview. I never done any sort of interviews with people. And I was, glad to have Burgess Owens to be my first interview. And actually, he was my first interview when I did the podcast at CPAC. So this is part of a 2-part episode. So the first part is this interview from last year with Burgess Owens. He at this time he had a book coming out called Liberalism, or How to Turn Good Men into Weenies, Whiners, and Wimps. And this was before the book came out, and part 2 will be on Thursday with a interview this week with Burgess Owens, and we just talk a little bit more, and I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about the Anthem protests and all that. So before we get to that interview, let's hear from our friends with the Founding Project.
Hello, Trend Chat listeners. If you like the Founding Project's Civics Education video series, Civics for All Ages, and our educational meme series, we think you will love our new website. Join us at thefoundingproject.com and be a part of the civics movement. The Founding Project is a 501c3 education nonprofit. Please join us today.
Yeah, and so once again, this was you're definitely going to hear it a little differently as far as how I do an interview. And actually, when I hear when I play this back before putting it on here, I'm like, I did pretty good. Just, I guess, in somewhat critical of myself and listening, especially for a first time interview. I'm like, well, I did my homework as far as trying to write questions out and everything, but I'm like, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was when I first heard it. So that's being said, let's get to this interview with Burgess Owens, Super Bowl champion Burgess Owens. And this is from July of last year, just to let you know, because we're going to talk about some issues that were going on at that time. So this is right after July 4th weekend. So without further ado, here's the interview with Burgess.
Hello, this is Politics. My name is Brian Bledsoe, and we are glad to have former NFL player, Super Bowl champion Burgess Owens, who has authored a book titled Liberalism, or How to Turn Good Men into Whiners, Weenies and Wimps. Thanks for your time, Mr. Owens, and thank you for speaking with us. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Brian, and looking forward to chatting with you. You know, I think we're at a very crucial point in our nation's history, and I'm excited about getting together with conservative black men and women across the country who still believe in our country and willing to work hard to take it back and resurrect our particular community. So I look forward to the process and having this conversation with you.
Well, first off, I want to say, in looking at the title of your book, I definitely believe that it should be the Webster Dictionary definition of liberalism from now on, because it's definitely spot on. But I also want to know, how did the title come about?
Okay, well, that's an interesting, it's a good question, and actually it's designed to help us to all think. First of all, the book is two-part. It's a celebration of the success of the first 100 years after the Civil War of our race. A lot of people do have no idea how successful, how much on track, how much of competitors we were with the white race for the first 100 years. In the 1960s, over 50% of our race was part of the middle class. We had the highest percentage of entrepreneurs. We had the highest percentage of men committed to marriage. We were competing head-to-head with the white liberal unions. That's why they had to pass the Davis-Bacon Act. So in a sense, it's a celebration of what I grew up in, down south, in a very proud, segregated community. At the same time, an update of the betrayal of our race by a group of white, liberal, anti-capitalist, atheists, Marxists. I mean, this is a group of people that a lot of people are not aware of, that were actually founders and the board of directors of the NAACP. So my book is kind of a look at the greatness of it and also the betrayal of it by those who a lot of people have no idea who were behind the curtains at this point. So just to really bring out what I believe we need to do again, and that is bring our men back to start fighting for our race again.
Okay. Also, I just want to ask, in case of anyone maybe not know your backstory, and how did you, I guess, make your roll to conservatism?
Well, I think it's interesting. If you look at our race overall, we have always been a conservative race. We have always, in the past, had a very strong tie to our country, patriotism, hard work, entrepreneurship, believe in traditional marriage. those are the foundations of what I was brought up in. I was brought up believing that America is a place that you can do anything you want to if you work hard and you stay honest. And I left my community of Tallahassee, Florida, segregated community, to go out to the University of Miami. I went there knowing that no matter where I was going to compete, on the field or in the classroom, I could compete. So that conservative nature is part of who we are. What happened, though, is we started voting as Democrats, and I did too. I voted as a Democrat all the way up until the point where I left the NFL and began to get into the real world and compete. And when I got out there, I realized there's so much opportunity out there for us, and there's no such thing as a white man trying to hold us down. It's our attitudes that keep us back. And I realized that the liberal Democratic Party has been using our race for a long, long time to get us hopeless and helpless so we can depend and vote on them. So I'm a very strong advocate of independence and free enterprise. And the conservative values are very much ensconced in that ideology.
Definitely wanted to bring up about a term that you coined in your book called a royalty black class.
Yes.
And I just wanted to ask about. I know you mentioned the NAACP, and also in your book you mentioned about BET. And I just wanted to ask about, I guess in particular this I guess you would call a royalty black class entertainer, Jesse Williams, who had this so-called great speech a couple of weeks ago in the BET Awards, and I was just wondering what your opinion of that particular speech.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's important that our race in America understand what has happened to us. Why have we gone to such a successful competitive race up into the 60s to where we are now? And it begins with understanding the royalty black class. There is a group of blacks who, since 1910, have looked at themselves as being the best of class. They are the elitists. They're the ones that were okay with bringing Margaret Sanger, the race population control person, into our community. They're the ones that stand strongly with the Democrats against every single pro-black legislation out there, whether it be school choice or allowing our kids to have the opportunity to have jobs by bringing down the minimum wage. There's a class of people, and there's about a third of our race, that will actually stand strong with liberalism. And their thoughts of liberalism and socialism highlights and is more important to them than their race. So identifying them and understanding that they're not our friends, that we need to finally stand up to them also, because they're the ones that hide the wizard. And I'm going to just make this point real quickly. The Wizard of Oz is something we all remember, Dorothy. Well, the Wizard of Oz for us has been those white bullies and cowards that stand behind the curtains and direct other blacks to attack blacks like myself who are giving other options. The wizards have been in the past, the atheists and the Marxists that began the NAACP. Today they are the Viacom. That's the board of directors, the organization that owns BET. BET has not been a black organization for 15 years. But the last 50 years, we've had white liberal racists that have firehosed our community with anti-black, anti-white, anti-American, anti-capitalism, anti-Christian message. And what we have today is a result of that. We have a very angry black men and women, boys and girls, who do not love our country anymore because of what Viacom has introduced into our communities. And I look at it very simply as this. They have been breeding our country, our community, for over 100 years. They've been breeding our kids for the abortionist cartel. 16 million black babies have been aborted, out of a population of 40 million. That is, in some cases, I'll be looking at that genocide. We keep our kids being dumbed down so they continue to vote for Democrats. 95% of a groupthink that votes for one party is ridiculous. So the book kind of goes through that process of who our real enemy is. And believe it or not, it's not a race that's our enemy. It's an ideology. Ideology of liberalism and socialism has killed us, has actually destroyed our communities for the last 50, 60 years.
I know you had different terms for like the royalty black class, whether it be the politicians or others in the book. And I was just wondering, where would you put BET or Black Lives Matter in that?
Very, very good question. First of all, I think it's important to understand where the messaging comes from. Black Lives Matters. There's a group of people that really don't care about Black lives. What they care about is they're anti-cops, they're anti-authority, they're anti-American. And when you see them fighting for Black lives, they're only the lives that are being killed by policemen. They don't care about the lives killed by the abortionists or the lives killed because of 93% of black boys in Chicago do not have jobs. They're unemployed and become unemployable, so therefore they're hopeless. So BET, understand, is run by a white organization, a white corporation, a totally 100% white board of directors, Viacom. So every bit of information that we're now hearing from BET comes from those white liberal bullies and cowards that hide behind the curtain. If people understood that, and they realize every time they hear somebody talk about Black Lives Matter or anti-cops or blacks don't have an opportunity, understand it's coming from white liberal Democrats. That the blacks that are talking are only the voice, they're only the mouthpiece. That's all they are. They're being used. And it is time for us to pull back the curtain and point these people out. And for people like Jesse Williams, very wealthy young man who's half white, I guess my question to him as he goes through this diatribe of how bad this country is and how much we have done against the black people, I guess half of him has to feel apologetic for being part of that. Because and his mom is white, his dad is black, and you have to make sure if he's going to be pointing to a race as being the problem, that he's half the problem because he's half white. So it's a nonsensical way of thinking when you get into this racism thing, because as we become racist, we become half the problem. We become the problem when we turn ourselves into racist Americans versus proud black Americans.
You know, that's funny because I don't remember him saying that, or President Obama at that fact too. I don't see them both coming up like, well, yeah, I'm half the problem too.
What it is you have to understand again. When you understand socialism, socialism is a battle we have to fight and we have to pull our country back from. And I'm hoping that black Americans who love our country, and there's a poll that came out a while back that 20% of black Americans love our country. They have traditional conservative values. They believe in God, believe in family. We have to stop voting for a party that stands against what we vote for. We have to also stand against an ideology that has really has undermined our race in big, big ways. So yes, when you get into socialist people, the socialism, it's always elitism versus race. It's always the class versus race. So when you get into people like that, their bottom line is to undermine what makes our country great and to divide us. And one thing I can say for sure, we are a country based on Judeo-Christian values. We believe in that God has directed our country, has given us the opportunity to look at each other from inside out, not outside in. And once we allow these racist, socialist, liberal, Democrats to take over and to drive our nation, we become a very divided nation. So whether it be black or white, they are the problems when we become racist.
Yeah. Well, at the time of this interview, we're a few days removed from July the 4th. And you have people from whether it's Black Lives Matter or other liberal groups, they're kind of going on this narrative that like a hashtag saying America was never great. And I just wanted to ask, well, what do you say to people like that?
Well, I understand where that thought process comes from. Remember I talked about the wizard behind the curtains. Well, one of the founders, the board members of the NAACP the guy was named John Dewey. John Dewey was an atheist. He's a Marxist. He's also the founder of the anti-Christian ACLU and Progressive Education. Well, if you want to know why our kids have no clue about our nation and the pride we should have and our success we've had as a community, it's because progressives decide not to teach them that. So I'm not surprised. That's why we need to have school choice. We need to have our parents have the choice of getting their kids out of those kind of schools so they can be taught the greatness of our country, the greatness of our race, and the greatness of Americans overall. So I'm not surprised at all that these kids are clueless. That's also why, by the way, the same royalty black class people and the white liberals make sure they vote against school choice for black kids. They don't put their kids in these failure schools, but they want to make sure our kids stay there so they continue to vote and be bred as Democrats. So I'm not surprised at all again. It's just the way socialists work, and we just have to fight against it by making sure we give our nation the freedom to give our kids the kind of education that will give them a pride in who they are and what they're all about.
Also, recent news is going on, especially down in Louisiana and also in Minnesota in the past couple of days, where there was Alton Sterling down in Baton Rouge, Orlando, I forget his last name. But we had some tragic shootings in the past couple of days, and you're already seeing groups like Black Lives Matter and others just out there going on without facts, not letting any investigation go on before, and already blaming racism or anything to stir up the emotions of the community. And I just want to ask what your opinions are on those matters.
Well, that's the way they work. That's the way they operate. I understand there's an election coming up. And the thing about racists, white racists, like the liberals and these black socialists, they could care less about black lives. What they care about is ramping up the emotions of people that they have already made hopeless, and have them believe that every single time a black person is shot or killed, it is a part of a white person or a part of a policeman. When a person has done wrong, they should go to jail. They should be punished like anyone else, across the board, black or white. But when we get to the point where automatically we judge a situation based on color, we have become the problem. We become racist. And let me tell you something about racists. They're never happy. They're judgmental, they're angry, they're never happy, and they never will be. So the last thing we need to do as a race is let those racists turn us into racists. And I'll tell you, for those people who call themselves that Black Lives Matter, let's talk about how Black lives really do matter. How about the 16 million black babies that have been aborted that you support? How about those kids in those communities who don't have jobs because of the Davis-Bacon Act, which you support as a Democrat? How about those kids who cannot leave those dangerous schools and are forced not to have any education, to leave those schools totally illiterate and hopeless because you support the Democrats who do that? Those lives matter also. We need to start talking up. And I'll tell you the other point, I'm looking forward to getting some men. The reason I call this turning men into Whinies, Weenies, and Wimps, we need to finally get black men to stand up again, to stand up and protect and provide protection for our women. And enough of this stuff where these liberal racists continue to attack our women in unbelievable ways, and we sit quietly and let them do that. So overall, Black lives matter, black women matter, black kids matter, along with every other American that lives in this country. We all matter. And it's time for us to put aside this black racist process that has been pushed through our community by VADCOM. They understand that's the group that's doing this. It's white, liberal, bullies and cowards that hide behind the curtains of VADCOM. Their board of directors, 100% white. And that's the message that we're getting, this result. And I think Americans need to turn around and start giving the free enterprise some kind of feedback or pushback. Let the free market kind of judge these people for what they're doing, because they're destroying our country at this point.
And just for clarification, his name Philandro Castile. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but that's the name of the gentleman who died up in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that whatever, in other words, if the policemen were wrong, then I really do hope they serve their sentence and are punished for it. If they're not wrong, then I hope they get off like any other free American should get off.
It's unfortunate that you have these groups coming into the community and stirring up the emotions before having any sort of factual investigation. Like I mentioned, it really makes it hard for when the facts do come out, for it to be any sort of, I guess, unbiased opinion on what has happened.
Yeah. Well, Brian, when I talked about breeding earlier, understand that is what the Democratic Party has been doing for over 100 years. Margaret Sanger, their all-American hero, believed in race population control and looked at black people as reckless breeders. Well, the Democratic Party has been breeding the black community for decades. And right now, they're trying to breed for their votes this coming November. Understand that every chance they get to get the inner city riled up and angry and hopeless, so to get them out, get them on the bus and take them to the polls, that's what Democrats do. They're breeding our race. And I think it's time for us to say enough of this mess. It's time for us to stand up against them, find some solutions for those in the inner city, help them not to be hopeless and dependent on a group of opportunists, because they will show up before the election, and the same old civil rights has-beens will be putting their face up and trying to get our people to vote once again, 90%, for a party that has failed them for over 50 years. We need to change that.
Yes, and I definitely want to recommend everyone to go out and get your book on July 19th. It definitely sheds light on some untold history of the NAACP or Planned Parenthood or BET, and it definitely is a very insightful book. Again,
can I also make a point real quick, Brian?
Yeah.
Because I'd love to. Right now, my goal is to strike back at the bullies. And right now, at the top of Viacom's list of the target list of someone who's gotten off the plantation is Stacey Dash. And I'm going to ask Americans Stacey represents the Dorothy, all those who did not survive the last 15, 20 years of liberalism, or 30 years of liberalism. And I'm going to ask Americans to let's hit these bullies back where it counts, in their pocketbook, with education. Stacey just came out with a book, There Goes My Social Life, from Clueless Conservative. And if I can encourage everyone, before buying my book, let's make her a #1 bestseller. She is what's happened after liberalism. My book is what happened before liberalism. Between the two, you get a good idea of what these guys have done. But let's make sure we hit those guys where it counts, with the ones that are right now being targeted by Viacom, and that's Stacey Dash. There Goes My Social Life, from Clueless to Conservative.
Yep, and get her book and also your book, Liberalism, or How to Turn Good Men into Whiners, Weenies, and Wimps. Again, it comes out July 19th. Thank you so much, Mr. Owens, for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it, buddy. Let's make this thing happen.
Yep, and thanks to Burgess for giving us his time back then in July. And, if you heard at the beginning, that was for Politichicks at that time. And, so, like I said, that was part 1, and part 2 will be on Thursday with a interview with Mr. Owens this week. And hope you like that little flashback, and hopefully listen in on Thursday with our new interview with Burgess Owens. So appreciate everyone listening in, and don't forget, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, it's TrendChat 24/7. And before we go, I do want to say I actually am in the 48 states I've finally gotten into. I am in North Dakota. I just thought about that and wanted to mention that right quick. I have driven all 48 states now. So we're broadcasting from Fargo, North Dakota. So just want to put that out there. And like I said, thanks for listening in. And until Thursday with part 2 with Burgess Owens, we'll chat with you later.